All right, we're working on Chapter 9, Section 1, which is Learning Plan 5.1, and we're going to be working with the square root property and completing the square. We're going to talk about the zero property factor, or zero factor property, which, that just means if you get the answer of 0, either this number is 0 or this number is 0. In other words, if you have x minus 4 times x minus 5 equals 0. One of those two numbers has to be 0. Square root property, take the square root of both sides. You should be able to get that answer. Solve quadratic equations that have a square here by the square root property. And then we're going to complete the square. And then find non-real answers like the square root of negative 25. Okay, so let's get started on how we do this. Just a second, I gotta get this arranged here. Okay. So, remember that these work with quadratic equation. What makes an equation? The equal sign. What makes a quadratic? That is squared. Notice that in the standard form, all of these are real numbers, and you're going to have an x squared power, an x power, and then a constant term. This is the standard form of the quadratic. Okay, what is the zero factor property? All right, I'm thinking of two numbers that when I multiply them together, I get 0. This number is 7. What's this number? Well, it's got to be 0, because when you get an answer of 0, either this number is 0, or this number is 0, or this number is 0. Okay, I'm thinking of two numbers, x plus 4 and x minus 3, and I'm going to get 0. Well, either this is 0 or this is 0. What does that mean? Well, that means if I take x plus 4, that's got to be 0, which means x is negative 4. Or x minus 3 is 0, which means x is positive 3. Those are my only two options. If my answer is 0, one of those two numbers has to be 0. Okay, so let's use that zero factor property to solve this equation. First thing you notice is you've got to get 0 on this side, so let's add 1 to both sides. And we get 2x squared minus 3x plus 1 equals 0. Why do I have two 1s there? That's supposed to be just 1. Okay, so let's split the middle term. What two numbers multiplied equal 2 and add equal negative 3? Negative x and negative 2x. If this sign is negative, this has to change. So now we can factor these two. Take an x out of the first ones, we're left with 2x minus 1. Take a negative 1 out of the second ones, we're left with 2x minus 1. So our factored form is x minus 1, 2x minus 1 equals 0. So either x minus 1 equals 0 or 2x minus 1 equals 0. In this case, x equals 1 or 2x equals 1, which means x equals 1/2. Those are the two options. So you try this one, and when you're ready, I'll show you how I solved it. Okay, so it's already got the 0 all alone. So we multiply these two together. What two numbers multiplied equal 24 are 5 apart? 3 and 8. So x minus, or negative 3x plus 8x, that equals 5x. Bring down the 2x squared. Bring down the negative 12. Factor out an x, and you're left with 2x minus 3. Factor out of 4, and you're left with 2x minus 3 equals 0. So you have x plus 4, 2x minus 3 equals 0. X equals negative 4. 2x minus 3 equals 0. 2x equals 3. X equals 3 halves. Next one. Okay, what two numbers multiplied equals 6, added equals 7, x plus 1, x plus 6 equals 0. So x equals negative 1 or x equals negative 6 are your two answers there. Next one. What's the square root property? Well, the square root property says that if you have a number that's squared, x, you take the square root of it, you get either positive or negative square root of x. Remember that this number k, can't be 0. If k is 0, then you only get one answer. All right, so let's solve this one. Well, you know, this first one, actually, we could have solved by factoring m minus 8m plus 8 equals 0. But let's use the square root property. M squared square root equals plus or minus square root of 64. M equals plus or minus 8, which notice is what you would have gotten if you would have solved that. For the second one, it would make sense if we would get the 3x squared on one side and the 54 on the other side, divide both sides by 3, and we get x squared equals, what is that? 3 goes into 54, 18 times. X squared equals 18. Take the square root of both of them. X equals plus or minus the root of 18. 18 divided by 3 is 6, divided by 3 is 2. So x equals plus or minus 3 square root 2. You do this one, and when you're ready, I'll show you how I did it. Come on now, where did my mouse go? Do the first one. I do them both. Okay, for the first one, take the square root of both sides. So it's plus or minus the root of 10. T equals plus or minus square root 10, which you can simplify. 2x squared equals 90. I moved the 90 to the other side. X squared equals 45. Take the square root of both sides, plus or minus the root of 45. Well, 45 divided by 3 is 15, divided by 3 is 5, so it's 3 square root 5. Next one. So you have 8z squared equals 512. Divide both sides by 8. 512 divided by 8 is 64. Take the square root of both sides. Z equals plus or minus 8. 8 or negative 8. Okay, when are you going to use this square root property? An expert marksman can hold a silver dollar at forehead level and drop it, draw his gun and shoot the coin as it passes waist level. So, if the coin falls about 4 feet, use the formula 4 equals 16 t squared. Divide both sides by 16. So t squared equals plus or minus square root of 4/16. Square root both sides. T equals square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 16 is 4. So t is plus or minus 1/2. Now the thing is, anybody knows you can't be minus 1/2 second. That means he could have shot it a half a second ago. So t is 1/2 second. Try this one. Okay, so distance is 16 t squared. 25, divide both sides by 16. 25/16 is t squared. Take the square root of both sides. So it's plus or minus. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 16 is 4. Can't be negative, so the time is 5/4 seconds. Next one. So we have the same formula. 28 equals 16t squared. So t squared square root equals 28 over 16 square root plus or minus. T equals, the bottom is 4. 28 divided by 2 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. So it's plus or minus 2 root 7 over 4. But it's not going to be minus. So 2 square root 7 divided by 4 equals 1.322875656 seconds. Now let's look at this problem, and we'll see, hey, we can use that square root property here also. We're used to taking this, the way that we used to solve this would be to say x minus 3 squared is x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 16. Subtract 16 from both sides. We get x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Factor that, x minus 7x plus 1 equals 0, x equals 7 or negative 1. We're going to solve it using the square root property. I'm going to change colors so that we don't get confused here. How does that work? Well, we have x minus 3 squared square root equals square root of 16. Now, you have to get the plus or minus in there. So you get x minus 3 equals plus or minus, what's the square root of 16? 4. So either x minus 3 equals 4 or x minus 3 equals negative 4. Add 3 to both sides, and we get x equals 7 or x equals negative 1. Same thing we got by factoring. So when we solved those quadratics before and we solved them by factoring, that's only one way to do it. This, you can see, is another way to solve those. You try this one. Okay, take the square root of both sides, x plus 2, or 3, excuse me, squared, equals plus or minus square root of 25. X plus 3 equals plus or minus 5. X plus 3 equals 5, or x plus 3 equals negative 5. Subtract 3 from both sides, and we get x equals 2, or x equals negative 8. How about this one? What's different? Well, not much, except that this time the x has a coefficient for it. So we're going to take square root of 3x plus 1 squared equals plus or minus the square root of 2. When we get done, we get 3x plus 1 equals plus or minus square root of 2. So our choices are 3x plus 1 equals the square root of 2, or 3x plus 1 equals the negative root of 2. Subtract 1 from both sides, and we get 3x equals negative 1 plus the root of 2. 3x equals negative 1 minus the root of 2. Divide both sides by 3. X equals negative 1 plus the root of 2 over 3. X equals negative 1 minus the root of 2 over 3. And here's a way to write that to save time, and that is x equals negative 1 plus or minus, that's where the plus or minus is going to go this time, root of 2 over 3. So, this one will be a little bit harder like that last one was. You try it, and when you're ready, press play, and I'll show you how I did it. Square root of both sides, 5x minus 4 squared equals plus or minus the square root of 27. 5x minus 4 equals plus or minus square root 27. Add 4 to both sides. 5x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 27. Divide both sides by 5. X equals 4 plus or minus square root of 27 over 5. Now, we have to take that square root 27 divided by 3 is 9, divided by 3 is 3. So we have a pair of 3's on the outside, 4 plus or minus 3, and a 3 on the inside over 5. So those are our two answers there. You try this one. Well, you get p minus 3 squared square root equals plus or minus square root of 7. P minus 3 equals plus or minus square root of 7. P, add 3 to both sides. P equals 3 plus or minus square root of 7. 3 plus the square root of 7, 3 minus the square root of 7. Hey! Sometimes we can make the square work out on its own. In other words, if we want this to be a square, parentheses to be a square, what number do we have to put here at the end? Well, the way we find that number is to take half of this and square it. 2 squared. 2 squared is 4, and we get x plus 2. Now I'll show you how that works. Here's the easiest way, is when you write it down, you write it like this. X squared plus 4x plus blank. Put in your parentheses, put in your x, bring down this sign, take half of this, put the square in, now square this and write it here. 4. Okay? So that's how you find these completing the square businesses. Let's look at this one. We're going to complete the square. Now, completing the square is easy if there's no leading coefficient. So how do you do it? The first thing is you get this number to the other side. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. And we get x squared minus 2x plus blank equals 10 plus blank. I put a blank on both sides, and I have to put the same number into both blanks. All right, now I start my parentheses, x, bring down the negative sign, minus half of this. Half of 2 is 1. Put the squared sign there. 1 squared is 1. Put the 1 on both sides. What does this equal? Well, that equals 11, right? Now we've got a problem just like the ones that we saw before. We can take the square root of both sides, and we get the square root of x minus 1 squared equals plus or minus square root 11. X minus 1 equals plus or minus square root 11. X equals 1 plus or minus square root 11. That's what this factors into. So before, when we tried to factor that, we said it can't be factored. Well, that's true. There are no numbers that are 10 apart. I'm sorry, that are 2 apart that multiplied equal 10. But if you press this 1 plus the square root of 11, you get 4.31662. And then 1 minus square root 11, you get negative 2.31662. If you notice, when you subtract those two, you get negative 2. And if you multiply them times 4.31662, you get 9.9999988, and so on, which is pretty close to negative 10. Okay, next one. Now we know this factors into 7 and 3, but let's see how that works with completing the square. A squared minus 10a minus or plus blank equals negative 21. Notice the 21 goes to the other side, plus blank. A, bring down the sign, minus half of this, 5 squared. Put the 25 here. Put the 25 here. Notice we added 25 to both sides. What does this equal? 4. Now, when we take the square root of both sides, square root of a minus 5 squared equals plus or minus square root of 4, we get a minus 5 equals plus or minus 2. A equals, now let's add 5 to both sides, 5 plus or minus 2. A equals 5 plus 2, which is 7, 5 minus 2, which is 3. Okay. Next. So the first thing you do is be sure that you have a squared term that has 1 as a coefficient. You write it so that this is on the other side and you have a blank there. Take half of this and put it here. Make sure you copy down the sign. Okay. Let's look at this one then. Step 1 is to get the 1 on the other side. X squared plus 3x plus blank equals 1. Move the 1 to the other side. plus blank. I have to add the same thing in each of those blanks. X plus half of 3x. I'm going to write it this way. 3 halves squared. Okay? Now, when I write it that way, square 3 halves is 9/4. I'm going to put 9/4 over here, and then, which means I have to change this 4/4, or 1 to 4/4. 4/4 plus 9/4 is 13/4. Square root both sides. X plus 3 halves squared equals plus or minus square root 13/4. I forgot to put the square root sign over here. X plus 3 halves equals plus or minus square root of 13 over 2. Because I took the square root of 4 on the inside is the same as a 2 on the outside. Now, I subtract 3 halves from each side. X equals negative 3 halves plus or minus square root of 13 halves, which we could write as negative 3 plus or minus square root 13 over 2. You try this one. Okay, step 1, x squared plus x plus blank equals 3 plus blank. X, bring down the sign, plus half of 1 is 1/2 squared. Makes this 1/4. Always leave this as a fraction. Now, to do that, you're going to have to change this to 12/4. 12/4 plus 1/4 is 13/4. So we have square root of both sides. X plus 1/2 squared square root equals plus or minus square root 13/4. X plus 1/2 equals plus or minus 13 root 13 over 2. Subtract a half from both sides, and you get x equals negative 1 plus or minus root 13 over 2. Try this one. P squared plus 3p plus blank equals 9 plus blank. P plus 3 halves squared is 9/4. This is 36/4. 9 and 36 is 45/4. Square root of both sides. P plus 3 halves squared equals plus or minus root 45 over 2. P plus 3 halves equals plus or minus root of 45 is 3 root 5 over 2. So P equals negative 3, put the 3 on the other side, plus or minus 3 root 5 all over 2. Now, what do you do if you have a coefficient in the front? If you do, you have to divide everything by that coefficient. So you end up with x squared plus 2x plus blank equals 2/3 plus blank. X, bring down the plus sign, half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1, or 3/3, which makes this 5/3. Take the square root of both sides. You get x plus 1 equals plus or minus square root 5/3. I would write this as 3/3. Subtract 3/3 from both sides. X equals negative 3 plus or minus square root 5 over 3. You do this one. Divide everything by 3 so that you don't have a lead coefficient, and you get x squared plus 4x plus blank equals 5/3. I put that on the other side, plus blank. X plus half of 4 is 2, squared is 4. 4 is 12/3. So 5/3 and 12 more thirds is 17/3. Let's take the square root of both sides. Plus or minus square root 17/3. You have to multiply top and bottom by 3 here so that you have x plus 2 equals plus or minus root 17 times 3 is 51 over 3. Remember, you can't have a square root in the denominator. Subtract 2 from both sides. 2 is 6/3, so our answer is x equals 6 plus or minus, no, negative 6 plus or minus root 51 all over 3. Okay, sometimes you can get a non-real answer. Take the square root of both sides here. You get x equals plus or minus the root of negative 17, which is plus or minus root 17 I, or I root 17. How does our book write it? Different books write it different ways. I root 17. X equals plus or minus I root 17. That's because some people aren't very careful in making sure their I doesn't go underneath the radical. Okay, you do these 3. Square root of both sides here. You get t equals plus or minus square root negative 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. Square root of 4 is 2. So t equals plus or minus 2i, oops, it's supposed to be an I, root 6. Next one, square root of both sides. X plus 4 equals plus or minus square root negative 36, which is 6i. Subtract 4 from both sides. X equals negative 4 plus or minus 6i. Last one, x squared plus 8x plus blank equals negative 21 plus blank. X plus half of 8 is 4, squared is 16, negative 5. Square root both sides. Plus or minus square root negative 5. So we get x plus 4 equals plus or minus I root 5. Subtract 4 from both sides. X equals negative 4 plus or minus I root 5. Next one. Oops. What is this? There we go. Oh, I see. I did all three of them on the same page. Okay, you do this one. X squared minus 4x plus blank equals negative 20 plus blank. X minus half of 4 is 2, squared is 4, so that's negative 16. X plus 2 squared square root equals plus or minus square root of negative 16. X plus 2 equals plus or minus 4i. Subtract 2 from both sides. X equals negative 2 plus or minus 4i. All right, if you have any questions, give me a call. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Have a good one.